If you're one of those fans waiting on bated breath for a classic Rick and Morty adventure, you're in luck. This episode has minimal meta jokes in it, especially compared to last week's ride on the story train. But beneath all the zany space shenanigans lie some deeper themes and some fun Easter eggs, so let's talk about them. I'm Whitney Van Lanningham, and this is my breakdown of Promortyus and the Glorzo. Yeehaw. Season 4, Episode 7 takes place on an asteroid where Rick, Morty, and Summer are attacked by life forms similar to the facehuggers in Alien. The episode titled Promortyus is a reference to the Alien installment Prometheus After All. According to Adult Swim's BTS companion video for this episode, the art team also drew inspiration from the Starro, or Star Conquerors, an alien starfish species in the DC universe that also forms parasitic relationships with faces. In R&M, these facehuggers originate from a planet/asteroid that goes by Glorzo, which happens to take a shape reminiscent of the elongated alien skulls from the Alien franchise, sort of how Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy work out of nowhere, which is the remains of a celestial. The species itself also goes by Glorzo, and they all have a strong biological urge to attach to a host and sacrifice their bodies to reproduce as a means to continue their species. This obviously is sort of futile, as they immediately sack their host minutes after latching on, and seemingly only produce one egg out of the process. But hey, not every species is optimized for evolution. Thanks to a toothpick protecting her face, Summer becomes the Empress of the Glorzo after she suggests that they subvert their biological programming and focus on improving their quality of life. This replaces their biological urges with a sense of nationalism, and the Glorzo use the technology brought by Rick to supercharge their society. Their culture evolves rapidly scientifically and socially, advancing centuries in a matter of what appears to just be days. Ultimately, their goal is to spread the glory of their planet and species across the universe. In a way, the Glorzo are similar to Unity from Season 2, or really any sci-fi parasite, and aims to assimilate all life to their species. All of this is expressed in a country music-esque song recorded by showrunner Dan Harmon that pokes fun at Summer redirecting the cultural identity of the Glorzo by reducing their ideology to just some shit they've made up. In a small ironic twist, Morty's Glorzo, aka Steve, appears to be a scientific genius who leads the Glorzo to technological breakthroughs, while Rick's Glorzo Bruce becomes a rambling extremist on U-Host, the Glorzoian YouTube. Even though Steve is considered a national hero, Empress Summer has started to make moves to replace him, hoping that she can convince him to let Morty free. This leads Steve back to his eggmate Bruce, and while this section of the show is informed speculation from Summer, I'd like to believe that these two aliens did find loving comfort in one another. Side quest? We're seeing a lot of grandfather-on-grandson kissing jokes in Season 4, and this is likely a throwback to creator Justin Roiland's original concept of Rick and Morty called Doc and Marty. Doc and Marty had a bunch of dark erotic humor between the titular characters that understandably the network nixed when developing the characters into a grandfather-grandson duo. Now that Rick and Morty has a multiple season pickup and is Adult Swim's cash cow, it looks like Roiland is returning those jokes with a vengeance. Either that or the writers have been watching a lot of incest porn on Pornhub with their advanced algorithm logins or whatever. Unfortunately for the lovebirds Steve and Bruce, Morty walks too close to a stalagmite and frees himself from Steve's control. It's kinda dope how Morty just has to lightly tug on Bruce to break Rick out of the Glorzo mind control, and he immediately starts blasting. This small beat really shows the trust and experience the two have developed from adventuring together. The pair has lost most of their memories and go undercover as Steve and Bruce to escape. After having their cover blown, they go full Star Wars on Glorzo, blasting the city to smithereens with laser cannons in an epic sky battle. Instead of, quote-unquote, doing a 9/11 when they see the alien planet's version of the Twin Towers, they make the very classy decision to pull off a Pearl Harbor instead. When they return home to eat breakfast and brag about their adventures, it turns out that Jerry has started a beekeeping hobby. A lot of people are thinking that Jerry is just rebranding store-bought honey and attempting to pass it off as his own. But since we actually see him beekeeping at the end of the episode, I'm more inclined to believe that he's just recycling an old bottle. Please note that the label on the bottle says Jerry's Own, and it makes total sense to me that he'd model his condiments after Paul Newman. When Beth asks if Summer had a good time with them, Rick and Morty realize that they accidentally left their granddaughter and sister on the planet that they just completely trashed. The boys hop back in Rick's spaceship car to rescue her, and for the first time actually return to the scene of one of their wreckages. Obviously, they do not get a warm welcome and end up slaughtering even more aliens, this time in the Gundam-inspired suits we've seen in the trailer. When they finally find Summer, she imprisons Rick and Morty for abandoning her, and while in jail, Morty discovers that he can make the facehuggers explode instantly if he plays harmonica. This is a reference to the Twilight Zone episode Hocus Pocus and Frisbee, where the hero is able to kill aliens by playing his harmonica, which emits what the aliens call death sounds. Side quest: what is it with parasites and sonic frequencies? The symbiotes from Spider-Man are also weak to certain vibrations. Because the sound instantly makes the Glorzo lay eggs, I wonder if this is a reference to the brown note, an infrasound that urban myth says will instantly cause a person to expel their bowels. Gross! Using Morty's harmonica to decimate almost all of the facehuggers left on the planet, Rick, Morty, and Summer escape. When they park in the driveway, the trio realizes that the only real lesson that they learned from this whole ordeal is that everyone is an a-hole, and that they're just a-holes too. Ah, there's that nihilism we all know and love. Let it envelop you like a warm hug made out of heroin. When they return home, Rick and Morty settle in to watch Interdimensional Cable, when all of a sudden they start to feel the butt-burster alien egg inside of them ready to blow. In a very dramatic surrender to their deaths, Rick and Morty say goodbye to Beth, take off their pants, and lay down together, clasping hands. Turns out that they both get swifty, aka they shit on the floor. According to what I've seen online, some people were a little confused about what Rick meant by saying that them pooping out eggs was a callback to the pilot. This is a reference to Morty having to shove the seeds way, way up his butthole, only reversed. The seed goes in, egg comes out. Cool reproductive metaphor, bruh. Way to stay on theme. Honestly, though, I wonder if Jerry's honey gave them the squirts. When you're eating Jerry's honey and your butt feels kind of funny, diarrhea. What? Diarrhea. What? After all, this is Jerry we're talking about. Turning honey into a laxative totally tracks. The episode closes out with an after-credits scene referencing that one scene in American Beauty when that hot teenager is hitting on Kevin Spacey in front of his daughter. Summer's friend Trish is watching Jerry beekeep out Summer's window, and after making a bunch of comments about him, admits that she totally wants to bang Summer's dad. Also, for a bit of continuity, we see the graves of the Rick and Morty that the C-137 duo replaced back in Season 1. Thematically, there are some interesting ideas and concepts brought up in this episode, and while they're a little meandering and bare bones this week, they are there. The big one is obviously in relation to the Twin Towers joke of the episode, which some fans saying earns this episode a spot in the Rick and Morty Hall of Fame. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it was the highlight of the episode without a doubt. It's a great bit of dark humor mixed with political awareness, followed immediately by a historically equivalent act of aggression that is slightly more palatable because it happened over 80 years ago. According to episode writer Jeff Loveness, the genesis for this episode was the idea of exploring the carnage and damage Rick and Morty do to planets that they come across. They often do a 9/11's worth of damage or more to the cultures that cross them. This time, Loveness wanted to put us into the shoes of the evil alien, humanize them, and have us ask, do facehuggers have dreams of their own? This isn't entirely a new idea, as the Purge episode also played with this concept, and this episode even directly references it. This episode is about the stories we as a society tell ourselves, and how they're juxtaposed against the stories of other cultures. It's the reality between the shit we've made up and the shit they've made up. I will say the non-anthropomorphic designs of the Glorzo do help expand on this idea through new avenues. Historically, movies and television have slowly started to move towards having interstellar armies for heroes to fight, as opposed to human ones coded in real-world politics. In a broad sense, action movies now have heroes fighting evil aliens or robots over vaguely Russian or Middle Eastern people. Part of this is to appeal to more foreign markets, but it's also a result of filmmakers becoming more woke. Even Star Wars, which is referenced, moves from faceless human foot soldiers to soulless robots over time, and the new trilogy had to double down on the Nazi motifs of the human troopers in order to make them acceptable targets again. By making the villains of our stories about non-humans, we're able to enjoy the bombastic destruction leveled by our idols without the guilt of knowing that real-world cultures are being vilified. This episode points fun at this story cheat code, and proposes that even the evil hordes of aliens have complex emotions and societies. So where does that leave the moral of the story? Should we question our cultural desire to watch violence unfold even if the targets are fictional and functionally harmless? Ultimately, the show lands on a similar plane of nihilism that it's known for. Maybe the aliens have some humanity and still suck. Maybe our heroes also suck. Maybe everyone sucks. Existence is pain and everybody dies, so let's just try to kick back and watch some TV. Once more, this season is telling us, hey, don't overthink things. Sure, you can play with looking beyond the veil of comedy, but at the end of the day, this is just a cartoon to enjoy. Those are my thoughts on Promortyus, but I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Are you a classic Avengers Rick and Morty fan, or did you prefer last week's meta-indulgence? Let me know in the comments below, like and subscribe to Nerdwire, and remember, if you think you're gonna poop an egg, you probably just have to poop.